Hey everyone, it's EDU Diva giving you the real deal on reality shows, political news, and everything that you hear going on right now in today's society. So today we're going to start with the Belle Collective. As you guys already know, I've given you some insight and said that is actually my first show that I'm reviewing for the first time and starting my YouTube channel. And I'm doing it because one of the Belles on the show is actually from my hometown. We are acquaintances. And so I felt that it was befitting for me to start this. So we are on season 6, episode 2, and this episode is titled Polyamory. So kind of a play on, I guess, polygamy, because Marie is having her dalliances with 2 men. So let's go ahead and get started. So Letitia shows up to a restaurant. I believe it's called Monty's or something like that. And she lets everybody know that she is the master of all trades. Basically, she does it all. What is Letitia Enterprises? Well, she's a Belle's bondsman. We hear her calling someone on the phone talking about basically getting someone bailed out. She talks about how she's a paralegal. She can bond you out. I mean, she can do it all. So basically, she's trying to let us know that, I'm sure it's because of the conversations that people were having about, like, what does Letitia really do? Like, what is Letitia Enterprises? And now I guess we have an idea because she's saying it directly from her mouth. Now she meets with Carrie. And one thing I noticed, let me go back just a little bit. One thing I noticed about Letitia, I love kind of some of the outfits that she's wearing, but she has Mr. and Mrs. or whatever you want to call it, pushed all the way up. And sometimes it feels like she's a little bit stuffed. And so I wish that she would kind of, and I'm not sure it's just because of the way that she's shaped at the top. It could be possibly, but she is stuffed in those tops. And, she really has her Mr. and Mrs. pulled up, whatever you want to call them. But I noticed that. But I do like, the suits and everything that she has. I actually like the animal print suit that she had on. That was really nice this episode. But overall, she's a beautiful woman. She ends up meeting up with Carrie. Carrie has all white on. Carrie has a little ponytail and a little swoop to the side. Almost looks like a young lady walking in with a, fresh dew to the side. So she looked cute. And we'll get into Carrie's style later on because there is a discussion with Miss Marie Monroe, or Dr. Marie Monroe, as she likes to be called. Now, they talk about, Carrie talks about how she's dressed and she's ready to go, looking like Whitley Gilbert. And they sit down and have a conversation about the brunches. And as you guys probably know by now, and it is mentioned in the actual show, Carrie is the owner of 3 restaurants. So she kind of has an idea of how brunches work. And so the thing that Letitia is trying to do is she's basically trying to focused on bringing brunches to the actual, state as a whole. And she was doing some of that, in the very early seasons, having brunches. But before they get into the meat and potatoes of that, she asks Carrie, what did she think about the event in Jackson? And Jackson, she basically says that Jackson, she had a good time and that, but it wasn't giving the coastal vibes. And Letitia felt that was shade, and it was a little bit of shade, but I knew what she meant. Let me give you some insight into how it works in Mississippi. So when we say we're from Mississippi, those that are from the Mississippi Gulf Coast, we normally say we're from the coast. Yes, there is some type of stereotype that they have, like people from Mississippi. Who are they? Are there really people from Mississippi? Are there really beautiful women from Mississippi? Are there beautiful Black women from Mississippi? Well, I'm here to tell you, yes, there are. But when it comes to how we operate in Mississippi, we do say we're from the coast, and we try to differentiate ourselves from the upper part because, sometimes in some people's minds, it's known as being racist when you talk about anything beyond the coast. And even Jackson, when you go past that, it's known for being very rural. It's known for being just not the city life that you probably would expect. But the Mississippi Gulf Coast, if you guys are not familiar with it, is about an hour from New Orleans. I went to school in New Orleans for about a year. I went to Dillard. That's where all the casinos are. So we have a lot of tourism down there, a lot of people visiting from all over. So it really has grown since I was a little girl being there. And I'm back all the time because I visit and I have connections in terms of ventures that I do here and there in my hometown. But that's just to kind of let you know, that's kind of the reason why Carrie made that statement, even though it was shade. So I understood why Letitia took it as shade. Now, Letitia said there was confusion at the event. It's a love triangle. I don't even know what's going on. Basically, this is what she says. And Carrie's like, I don't know what's going on. And Letitia says she just doesn't want Marie to get hurt. That's really her ultimate um, um, thing that she doesn't want to happen. She doesn't want to see Dr. Marie Monroe get hurt. Now, she talks about relaunching her brunch, and it's called Women's Brunch Mississippi. And the reason why she had Carrie there is because she knows that Carrie owns her brunch restaurants, which are called Brick and Spoon. She has locations in Biloxi, Gulfport, and Mobile, Alabama. Now, she says it's not going to be like a regular brunch. It's not like a sit down, brunch, but it's going to be a social. So she was like, it's not a brunch, it's a social, but she wants to have brunch food. So I was like, okay, how does that add up? Now she wants it to be intimate, and that's where she's going to make, when she has this one event where she's going to have the intimate social gathering, she wants to make the announcement of the Women's Brunch Mississippi, basically. And that is basically what she's focusing on. Now, after this scene, Marie goes to her office, and we haven't seen Marie in her office in a while, so it was great. She comes in, she sits down. We see Essie, who is her best friend, and her colleague as it relates to them owning the mental health clinics. Now, she talks about the fact that she has to update some of the policies for Hamilton Davis. That's the name of her clinic. And she asked Essie about her health. We know that we found out, I think it was last season, that Essie was having some health complications. And Essie says that she's been doing great. She's been traveling to and from Alabama for her lung transplant, and that she's feeling a lot better. So that's great to hear. Glad that Essie is doing well. And Dr. Marie Monroe says it would be great for her to retire, for herself to retire, because she says she's at this point where she's done all this work and she feels like she's been successful in what she's been able to accomplish, and now it's time for her to retire. And Essie is like, oh, no, you don't need to retire, you need to give me another 12 months. And Dr. Marie Monroe was like, you told me that last year. And she says, well, give me another 12 months. And so that was funny, because it was like, I know she probably gonna keep on saying give me another 12 months, because she doesn't want to lose her business partner and best friend kind of in the day-to-day actions of the business. Now, Essie says, if you would stop juggling all these men, then you would have time. And I was like, oop. And so basically what happened was Marie responded back, basically who you think you're talking to? Basically, kind of being funny with her. She says, basically, if you would just stop juggling all these men, then you would have the time. And Dr. Marie Monroe is like, I'm doing the best with what I'm doing. And basically, I'm doing the best with what I got, the best I can with what I got, like Mariah Carey says. And she says that Essie would think that there would be furniture moving if two other men were in that type of situation, and that she better be glad it was Cedric and Martin there, because they, their demeanors were a lot more calming and easy in terms of what was going on. She said you were dancing with one man basically on one hand, and on the other end dancing with another man. And Marie says she loves Cedric, but she likes Martin. So that's kind of her conflict. But and you can see the difference between the two. Her saying she loves one and she likes the other, which means the one that you like probably is easier to kind of let go, right? Because the love that's there, that's just not going to cease, I don't think, just automatically, even if you were to go to the side of Martin. But you're going to see later on kind of what happens. And she says one of the things that she did like about Martin is that he was carefree, in a sense that he, she remembers when they went, I guess, on a trip, and he was driving on that jet ski, and she was behind him, and they were going from one side of the sea to the next, and they actually show a clip of them on the jet ski, so that was interesting. And it just seems like she was probably just feeling exhilarated. She needed some type of fun, some type of excitement in her life, and that is what Martin was able to give to her. Now, she says, though, she hasn't heard anything from Martin in about 2 weeks. And that's kind of weird, because they, talk, pretty much, frequently. And so she was like, what's going on? I haven't spoken to him in like 2 weeks. So I got to, get some clarity with Martin. And so after that scene, we then see Marie at Cedric's house. And she's up in the kitchen preparing, cutting up some fruit and stuff, and then we hear some talking, and it's Cedric in the bed, right? And so I'm like, what is going on? And she says in her confessional she's still torn between Cedric and Martin, but she said that her and Cedric had a date that night, and that one thing led to another, and that's why we see the scene that we see with her in the kitchen. And so she comes back into the bedroom with Cedric, and Cedric talks about how he told, Marie Monroe basically starts talking about, what did you think? How did you feel about the birthday? And he says, I felt fine. He said, I talked to Martin and was talking to him about our daughter. And that we have together and tell him about, my other kids and everything like that. So we had a good conversation, but he said he did feel like a sucker. So that was interesting for him to hear that because he didn't really necessarily show it, but that's how he felt. And he said that he felt uncomfortable. And Marie said she felt uncomfortable too. She didn't show it. She put on a good front with it. So that was interesting. Now, Sid says he has unconditional love in his heart for her. And Dr. Marie Monroe says she feels the same. And that, and he says if we're not right for each other at this time, then we're basically not right for each other at this time. That's basically what he's saying. But from the way I gather, Marie Monroe is back smitten. I'm saying back smitten because they were once together with her ex-husband, and that's who she seems to be leaning towards. So that is interesting to see how it plays out for the rest of the episode. Now, after this scene, we see Selena, and she says that Sky has a baby on the way. And she says that she wants to do an all-white event for her son. So she's kind of pretty busy with the baby being on the way with Sky, her daughter. Her daughters are from Bring It, if you guys are not familiar. And so she has the twins, and then she has the one daughter, Sanjay, who was on Bring It also. And they are by JJ, who was once on the show. You guys know who JJ is, who was on the show, I think, for the last 2 seasons, him and Soguchi. So they were on the show, and that is who the children are by. Now, she talks about the baby being on the way with Sky, and then talks about how she wants to do an all-white event for her son who passed away. And we find out, because I didn't know the actual date. I was like, when did he pass away? I know she had mentioned it before, but he passed away around 2020. So this was in COVID, and he was actually murdered. So that's very, very sad to hear. Definitely prayers for Selena, and I hope that she, I know she's never going to get over it, but I hope she has peace, at times that can help her to kind of just think back to the, great things with her son. And Selena, after that, what happens is Mike comes in the house. He's coming in with like some tissue and all that kind of stuff. And she's just kind of looking at him. She's basically saying, I'm giving him the silent treatment. He's like, basically, what's up? He's like, what the heck is wrong with you? And she's like, you don't answer your phone when you're away. And that's a problem. She says basically they were communicating all the time. He was doing all this stuff to get her. Why are you stopping? Why did you stop? Excuse me, guys. I'm trying to get this out right. Why did you get to a point to where you're not doing those things anymore, basically? And she was like, that's unacceptable. And she says that he's getting too comfortable. And she says we need to meet up with Letitia, basically, so we can try to work this out, how we can overcome some of these communication issues that we're having. She's been there, kind of done that. That's how she feels on her end. Let's get together, and with them, so that way we can find out the root of our issues. After that particular scene, Letitia comes in for her women's brunch, Mississippi announcement that she's going to have. Basically, the event that she was going to have, that she was sitting down having a conversation with Carrie about, where she was going to make the official announcement of the statewide tour that she wants to have. So she comes in. Carrie shows up next, then Selena, and Selena talks about how she wants to clear the air with Latrice because her and Latrice, which I'm like, always in these reality shows, I'm like, this is just so odd. How have you not had a conversation with each other since, an issue or incident happened? But she says she wants to have a conversation with Latrice about her not being the bar manager. I don't know if you guys remember my first review last week. I was like, okay, what position was she supposed to have? I wasn't clear, but it was the bar manager, and she just wanted to have a conversation because she felt like her friend kind of is ghosting her, or is not, they're not communicating like they used to. But they haven't had a conversation on that. I'm like, doesn't she know that you were in a car accident? We're having seizures. I'm like, that's all that stuff, that reality show stuff is odd, because I'm like, I wouldn't let time go by. But some people do things in terms of waiting for conversations when they know the cameras are running, so they can actually showcase, what things happening in real time. But after Selena comes in and makes that statement kind of in her confessionals, Latrice then shows up, and she basically talks about how Selena has ghosted her. And so she wants to clear the air and get that squared away. And she doesn't know what to say about the DM coming from Glenn, from her friend Amanda. So that does not get mentioned this episode. And then after that, Letitia starts talking about how the focus of her brunches is to build economic development with women. And her goal is to really focus on creating a network of about 3,000 women. So I think that's great. One of the things that we've seen with Letitia is that she's been a lot of talk, with Ferris Street and all that. And then we saw, some things didn't fall through the way she probably wanted to for Ferris Street. And then you had Akeisha coming in, who's no longer on the show though, who kind of got some things done. We saw some action behind it. And I've seen Letitia do some things with her brunches, and I appreciate her passion, but there's not a lot of, I think, like detailed planning, I think, to get it to where it probably could be, because she has the power in terms of her being on a network, being an OG with Belle Collective, to get some things done. And I just want to see her excel, but I think we need a little bit more, going for it to be kind of where it needs to be in terms of being the success that it could be, and making it more than just a statewide event, making it to where she's going to other states and other areas to be successful, right? So after that, Carrie talks to Latrice. And then after Carrie talks to Latrice, they kind of introduce themselves, because remember, they didn't meet each other because Latrice was not at the event last week. So she says, hey, I just wanted to meet somebody else, basically a fellow restaurateur. And they's like, hey, and Latrice mentions in her confessionals that Carrie is extra and dramatic, but she loves it. So that's good. Her and Latrice and Carrie hit it off, so that's great. You always want the new girl to kind of do her thing, but also kind of win over some of the OGs that are on the show. And so Marie then shows up, and Carrie says, oh, you showing up as a spaceship, you navigating, right? Because you have the outfit, basically. So what happens is Marie comes in with like this silver kind of chrome glistening outfit. And Dr. Marie Monroe is always going to have a fit on, right? But she did kind of look like a tinfoil in the sense of her having that whole, from head to toe item on. And Dr. Marie Monroe, she ain't no one to hide her feelings in terms of her facial expressions. And she was kind of looking at her like, what? But I think at that moment she let it go for that second. And then Carrie says she would have never showed up late. She mentions that in her confessionals. Like, if I'm your friend, I would not be showing up late. Now, granted, I think we all have that mantra, don't show up late, to events, especially one that's being taped, but you never know what may happen. So, the goal is to always show up on time. I'm one of those people that I try to be early because I like to get things done. And then when I do need to leave, I can leave. I'm not there all the way to the end. So that's kind of how I operate when it comes to that. Now, Latrice says, Marie, you got that natural BBL, basically. They're giving her props on kind of how she looks overall, even though we know she's standing out because she got that silver chrome outfit on. But she says, basically that Marie looks good. Marie says she's single. And she starts saying, because she feels like she's kind of being, like they're kind of messing with her a little bit because she came in late. They all kind of surround her talking. And she's basically, they start asking her questions about, her men and all that type of stuff. She's like, basically, let me ask y'all questions. Which one of y'all have experienced infidelity in the marriage? And everybody kind of on mute, the mute challenge, Beyonce, right? And so she's like, y'all asking me about my stuff, what's going on with me, what about with y'all? And nobody said anything really that, because of course ain't nobody gonna really want to answer that. So the scene cuts, and then it comes back, of course, and they're still at the brunch announcement. And Latrice says, why do you try to bring up other people's situations? Basically, that's what she's saying about Dr. Marie Monroe. And Marie says, basically, we're gonna play true or false. Have y'all dealt with, is it true that y'all dealt with any infidelity in your marriage, basically? So they're still going on about that conversation. Letitia says last she knew that Martin was your man, basically, and Cedric was a friend. That's how she knew it to be. And asks, how did it switch, basically? And we know from basically what happened, Martin basically kind of ghosted her in the sense of not responding to her 2 to 3 weeks. And in that time frame, Cedric was coming around. That's basically what she says. Now, Selena and Latrice start talking. And Selena says, I haven't heard from you. Latrice basically says, I haven't heard from you. And basically, you weren't there for me in terms of, you said you were going to be the bar manager. Latrice says that she was in her feelings. And Selena says she was too. And then Selena says that they have been friends for over a decade, so she don't want to lose that friendship. And she says, I went through the accident, I went through that. And like I said, I just find that situation kind of odd, because I'm like, how are y'all just now talking about this? Like, nobody knew that Selena got into an accident, and obviously it was a bad one. She was having seizures, and then Selena brings up her dog died. The dog was her son's dog, and it was just an emotional time for her. So I am sorry to hear that, but it seems like it's water under the bridge. They're okay. It wasn't anything too major, and they're gonna be fine. Now, after that situation, what ends up happening, Marie and Carrie actually speak. So Marie and Carrie they pull each other to the side, they start talking, and then Marie basically says, "Oh, so what's going on? Were you trying to shade me when you said I came from space, basically?" And Carrie was like, "No, that's just how I am. I like to joke. I like to, Joan or whatever. I was just having fun, just saying what I had to say." Now, one thing I will say with Carrie is that it's fine to make little jokes and all that kind of stuff and do that, but you got to realize sometimes people don't take jokes lightly. They don't like you playing on their name in terms of, what they wear and how they look, and anything dealing with that is, sometimes, people are going to be like, "What? Who you think you're talking to?" Basically. And so I'm sure she'll learn this, but, I don't want Carrie to change her personality, because she is a spitfire in terms of, able to, talk and joke and have fun, those types of things. But, some people don't take that lightly, Now, Marie says basically, now this was funny. This is not a diss to my girl Carrie, because I think my girl Carrie is fabulous, but she said the drawstring ponytail. You got this drawstring ponytail and this grandma outfit. Now, what she had on, I thought was cute. What Carrie had on is something that you can dress up and make it do what it do for, any type of event. It was cute, but I can see where Dr. Marie Monroe was able to crack the joke, right? But overall, Carrie looked cute, and so after she said that, Carrie said basically, "This is a timeless classic, baby," because her thing is, "I'm with Lee Gilbert, right? I can wear anything." And so I thought she was about to say, "I got Chanel, I got Kendra Moore, I got David Herman." I thought she was about to say, "I got all this stuff," or how they do for Rush, for Bama Rush and all these other Rushes. I thought she was about to start naming all the labels, but she said basically, "This is a timeless classic." And she says that Marie basically makes a comment in the confessionals that, "Baby, you got to be hazed," which is funny because, we don't haze anybody, right? Or at least we should not haze anybody, But she says, "You got to be hazed, baby, to be in this group. You can't just be coming in thinking you can say whatever you want to say and think it's going to be fine." So that was funny, which I do think that a lot of these shows do haze in the sense of, they do little things. Think about Real Housewives of Potomac, Giselle and some of the girls. Things are said to kind of see how tough are you really, and are you going to be able to roll with the big punches? Basically that's how it is. And Marie just basically says, "Your stuff is given old fashioned," and she walks away. She says, "I'm fine," and you give an old fashioned. So that was interesting. It was light fun in terms of the conversation. Nobody got too crazy. Nobody got really upset. So I think that was good. I think Carrie held her own, and Marie did what she normally does. So basically Carrie says she basically needs to fly away. Because, the theme is that she's on that spaceship. Now, Selena, they all come together. Selena ends up inviting all of the girls to her white event party that she's having to basically honor her son. So I believe everybody is going to be set to go. And it's for her son, who is Quincy Johnson. So that is his name. His name is Quincy Johnson. Now, Marie shades Carrie about her restaurants, basically. So in the midst of that conversation, she basically asked her, "You have a restaurant in Biloxi, right?" And then, Carrie starts mentioning, "Yes, Biloxi, Gulfport, Mississippi, and then Mobile, Alabama." And she's basically like, "Well, basically, if you got all those restaurants and you doing all that, you should basically, your aesthetic, your style should be on point. And you shouldn't be basically dressing the way you dressing." So that was interesting. So I know that they're always probably going to have this thing. Marie Monroe she always kind of has a little thing with somebody that's on the show. So normally. And so that's going to be interesting, though, to see how they progress during the season. But I didn't hear anything kind of through the grapevine that there was going to be anything crazy going on between them. it seems like for now, I think she probably held her own throughout the season, which I'm glad to hear. Now, Selena meets up with all three of the girls that I mentioned earlier. So Sky, Star, Sanjay. And she talks to them about her issues with Mike, and they kind of looking at her like, we love Mike, basically. They had nothing but great things to say about him in this scene, and basically says that he does a lot of things. He does this, he does that. And she kind of looking at him like, hey, y'all supposed to be on my side, right? I'm your mama. But she talks about the lack of communication skills, which we know is a big thing, big issue that they're having, and how he went out and got a box truck, he got a boat, without having conversations with her. It's not like he just went out and got, a TV. That's what Sanjay mentions. Yeah, so Sanjay's like, I understand that. And then that's basically it for that scene. She's basically just kind of venting to them, and that's it. Now, the last scene is Marie shows up to meet up with Martin at some type of pizza place. And when you see the two of them together, they just don't seem like a match. It just don't, her and Cedric, of course, do seem like they match. Obviously, they were together before, but they just don't seem like a match. But Marie, she's still kind of, giggly when she sees him. And, she talks about how he went to the mountains and went skiing in Germany with this kid. She asked how that went. He said it went well. And she talks about how she picked him up from the airport, I guess, when he got back. And then right when she picked him up from the airport, they spent, I guess, that day together. But then after that, he ghosted her for about 3 weeks. She said she felt abandoned. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry you felt like that. And then she starts segueing into her, during that time frame, I didn't hear anything from you. And, my ex was there, and we started talking, and he basically was like, well, where is this going? That's what Martin is saying. And she says, basically, we talked during that time frame and, got closer, and basically I can't see you anymore. And Martin seems like he's a little bit disappointed, not too crazy. I don't think that they were going to last anyways. I think it was just something for her to do with him. They had fun, but they did not seem like they were equally yoked in terms of just their spirits, right? So that is basically how it ended for this particular episode. I do see in the next episode, it seems like there's going to be some conversations, Carrie with her husband. It looks like she's kind of wiping her eyes, probably talking about how busy she is, being the entrepreneur that she is. And then we see some other scenes with them being at the white event, and then the girl, somebody bringing up, about Glenn being in the DM. He's like, I only love my wife, Letitia. So this is going to be interesting. I feel really bad for Letitia because I know the main thing is that she really just wants to be with her husband and wants him to stop doing any type of mess. And we don't even know what's currently going on. Was this when he was doing the mess in the very beginning? Don't make it right, but if it happened before he officially, baptized himself in Lake Minnesota, or Minnetonka, whatever you want to call that lake that's up there in Minnesota, that Prince had Apollonia get into, then what can you really do about it? So you really got to think about it like in a sense of like, if he's saying that he's doing the right thing, did he leave out some things? He probably did. He probably was doing other stuff that Letitia didn't find out about. Also, we didn't see a lot of Cliff this episode, or see him at all this episode, and really much of Latrice. So that's going to be interesting to see how that kind of goes. Right? We do see a clip next week of him kind of wiping his eyes. It's probably when they're talking about the deaths in their family, and when Latrice is specifically talking about the deaths of her brothers. And so far, this episode was good. I would probably give this episode probably a B. And yeah, so I want you guys to like, comment, share, give me some feedback on what your thoughts from the show. Tell me any other types of shows that you would like for me to review. As I kind of get into this, I'll get a little bit more, I guess you could say, detailed in terms of everything. I just want to make sure that I get everything out for you guys so you guys kind of understand what happened on the show. And I'll probably end up a few episodes, maybe next episode, once I start getting into my technological bag, I'll start showing some pictures of me and Carrie from over the years, so you guys can kind of just see some things. And then other things that, I'll discuss will be about things that are currently going on in society and the world today. So I'll talk to you guys soon. This is EDU Diva, Dr. Jackson, signing out. Bye.